No Braves player was under the microscope more in 2022 than Matt Olson, with the job of filling the shoes of franchise legend and icon Freddie Freeman. Certainly, there are a lot of opinions on Matt Olson's first season, where for the most part, at the end, he got things done and was exactly the player that the Braves traded for. But certainly, there is some room for improvement going forward. We'll review Matt Olson's season, talk about the good, the bad, and what to expect going forward, and reevaluate that trade that Alex Anthopoulos made for the first base slugger. All of that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on Twitter at shorts.ball and check out my bio there to see where I am covering the game of baseball. Also, make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you are new. Hit that thumbs up button and that notification bell on the video, as it does help support the show a ton when you do that. And thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. We'll continue to post episodes daily throughout the offseason. So even though the Braves postseason run came up a little bit short, we'll still be here with you throughout the rest of October and through the offseason as well, as the Braves look to rebound and try to win another World Series in 2023. But on today's episode, we're going to start with our first player review from 2022, looking at the season of Matt Olson. I think he, to me, was one of the most interesting players to watch this year, with just the shoes that he had to fill and the role that he needed to play in the middle of the lineup, what the Braves gave up for him. I think he was one of the more fascinating players to kind of watch through the 2022 season. And ultimately, I thought he did a good job. And we'll obviously get into that, but I want to dive into the numbers, the circumstances, and then also give you my final thoughts on, was it a good season for Matt Olson and what to expect from him going forward. But certainly, let's go back to the offseason, because that's where it all started, obviously, for Matt Olson. The season ended for the Braves last year, and they were without a first baseman. For the first time in a long time, Freddie Freeman was not under contract for the Atlanta Braves. And the MLB lockout happened on December 2nd, started on December 2nd, and did not end until March the 10th. And obviously, the season, was rapidly approaching, and the Braves needed a first baseman. And we talked about this on here all last offseason. It had to either be Freddie Freeman or Matt Olson. Those were really the only two options in my mind. If you weren't going to get Freddie Freeman, then you knew Alex Anthopoulos and the Braves had to pivot and go get Matt Olson. And 4 days after the lockout ended, that's exactly what happened. Alex Anthopoulos saw the writing on the wall with Freddie Freeman and his agents, and he pivoted and went and got Matt Olson. And the Braves gave up a pretty good package for him: Shea Langoliers, Christian Pache, Ryan Cusick, and Joey Estes. And before we go any further, I just kind of want to reevaluate that trade real quickly, because I thought it was a high price, a pretty big price for Matt Olson. But you look at Pache, and I'm rooting so hard for that kid. I really want him to figure it out. I think he's a great human being, but A's gave him a really long look this year, and he slashed 166, 218, 241 in 91 games. Obviously played great center field defense. That's never going to be a question with Pache, but certainly he's got to hit a little bit better. He did decent at AAA, 248, 298, 248, 298, 389 in 41 games with the A's AAA affiliate. So hopefully Pache can get the bat going. Still obviously a young kid, and with that defense, he's going to play, but certainly was not a great year for Pache at the big league level. Shea Langoliers was great at the AAA level, and he was obviously the one guy in that trade that I really hated to lose, because I thought he was going to be the future catcher of the Braves. William Contreras has made me feel much better about that. Langoliers had a great year at AAA for Oakland, slash 283, 366, .510 with 19 home runs in 92 games. And then he got called up. He slashed 218, 261, 430 with 6 home runs in 40 games at the big league level. Ryan Cusick, former first-round draft pick, had a 7.02 ERA and a 2.024 WHIP in 12 games at Double-A for the A's. 43 strikeouts, 41 innings, and 30 walks. Currently pitching in the Arizona Fall League right now. And then Joey Estes, an arm that I really liked. He had a 4.55 ERA and a 1.27 WHIP with 92 strikeouts and 91 innings, 30 walks, and 20 games started for the A's high A affiliate. So, again, nothing really so far that's hurting the Braves in terms of that trade. I still think Langoliers is going to be a good catcher for a long time at the big league level. But again, if Contreras ends up being as good as he was in 2022, I think that lessens the blow there. I do think either Estes or Cusick could be a solid pitcher. I don't think any of them are going to be top of the rotation. I think Cusick ultimately ends up in the bullpen. I said that even before the trade. But I think Langoliers is the one to watch there. I think that's going to be the biggest piece of that trade. But a day later, after the trade is made, the Braves signed Matt Olson to an 8-year deal, $168 million, the biggest deal in franchise history at the time. So right off the bat, Matt Olson has big shoes to fill and a franchise icon in Freddie Freeman, a big contract to live up to. It had to be a lot of stress going into this season for Matt Olson. And to his credit, he came out of the gates just on fire. I mean, he was the best bat in April, the most consistent bat in the first month of the season when really nobody else had gotten it going. He slashed 293, 398, 476 in the month of April, 15 walks to 22 strikeouts. And he's going to get those strikeouts, unfortunately, but he will also take his walks as well. Only 2 home runs in April. We talked a lot then about the balls not flying as much. A lot of the balls dying at the warning track, was racking up a ton of doubles, but just 2 home runs in April. After April, though, he was really kind of more of a 240, 320, 475 player the rest of the way. Really just kind of good, not great necessarily. He did hit 9 home runs in July, his biggest total that he had. And then September was just a brutal stretch for Matt Olson. Slashed 169, 265, 326 with 11 walks and 32 strikeouts in the month of September and had an 0 for 22 stretch in there as well. He sat for the first time all year on September 24th. And look, maybe it's something you have to look into. It's kind of hard for me to believe that, just taking a day off really rejuvenated him as much as it did, but the results were there. After he sat on September 24th, he was 13 for 37 the rest of the way. That's a 351 average with 6 home runs in the last 10 games and hits in 9 of the last 10 regular season games he played. And then he was the Braves' best hitter in the postseason as well. He was 4 for 12 with 2 homers, 4 runs, 5 runs batted in, 5 walks, and 4 strikeouts. So finished the season really strong, was great in the postseason. Certainly love to see that, but I think it's something to definitely keep an eye on next year. Do they give him some more time off? Do they give him some more days off? Try to keep him fresh down the stretch. I think you have to look into that with the way the season ended for Riley, with the way it ended with Swanson and Olson. I think that's something you certainly have to consider so those guys don't tire out down the stretch. I hate to throw a bunch of numbers at you just listening, but I do want to throw the season numbers at you. He hit 240, 248 expected batting average, 325 on base, 477 slug. He had a 467 expected slugging, and 802 OPS. I'll take that. If an OPS around 800, would love to see it, a little bit higher. But obviously, would love any OPS over 800. 34 home runs, a career high 44 doubles. Like I said, he was racking up those doubles, especially earlier in the year where the balls just seemed to be dying, whether it was the weather or a new change in the baseball, whatever it was. He racked up the doubles. 86 runs scored, 103 runs batted in. Again, he gave you exactly what the Braves traded for. 75 walks, a 10.7 walk percent or walk rate. Obviously the best on the Braves team in terms of walks. We don't necessarily say it's great overall. 170 strikeouts, a 24.3 K percentage. not great. 3.1 WAR, that is solid. Would love to see that be more around 4. A 120 WRC plus, league average is 100, so well above average there. 274 batting average on balls in play. That's pretty on par. That's pretty average there. 50.9% hard hit rate, and that's really good. And then an average exit velocity of 92.9%. That's really good as well. He hit the ball really hard when he put the ball in play, and evident by all the extra base hits that he got. You look at defensive numbers, had 5 defensive run saves, 0.4 at UZR, 2 outs above average, and had a defensive rating of negative 9.8, not negative 9.4, which, defensive rating for first baseman, there's only one first baseman that had a positive defensive rating. So don't look into that too much. He was 8th best overall defensively among first basemen and the 4th best in the National League. And, he is a finalist at first base in the National League for Gold Glove. So whether you think he's deserving of that or not, certainly wasn't a terrible defensive player in 2022. So that's just kind of how the season played out, what the numbers looked like. Next, I want to give you my thoughts on how I thought the season went for Matt Olson and what we can look forward to in the years to come. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game that you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information with live betting and up-to-date minute scores for every sport out there. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. You got NHL as well. Look, you got to fill the void somehow in the offseason. I had an NHL game up tonight, so tons of sports action still going on as we get ready. Obviously, World Series still coming up, but as we go into the offseason, trying to find other ways to get our sports fix. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. So we talked about the overall numbers for Matt Olson, kind of how the year played out, the circumstances coming in. My final thoughts on Matt Olson are he's exactly what we should have expected when we traded for Matt Olson, or when the Braves traded for Matt Olson. He brought the power, 78 extra base hits. He brought the power. He brought the run production, over 100 runs batted in. That's exactly what you want from Matt Olson. He started the year in the 2-hole. And I get why, because of the on base, because he took his walks. But when you moved him down into the 3-4 hole, he really just became that run producer that I think the Braves needed there. And, he became that guy that you thought he could be, driving in runs, getting the home runs, doubles, exactly what you thought you'd get from a slugger like Matt Olson. Great discipline for the most part. Look, I thought he kind of got away from it there in the middle of the season, was really good early, was really good late. And throughout, I think there definitely were some signs of some good plate discipline. Led the team in walks by a pretty good margin. And then I thought he played solid defense. I don't know that it's Gold Glove worthy, but obviously I thought he played solid there. The numbers kind of back that up. I think the problem comes for Braves fans, and me, myself included in that, is I think he was probably unfairly compared to his predecessor, and he didn't hit for average like Freddie Freeman is going to. Not a great base runner. And while Freddie Freeman may not be fast, he certainly was lauded because he's a good base runner, a smart base runner. Matt Olson is not that. So look, you can compare them, and they're always going to be compared. Those two guys are always going to be compared, but they're different players in that way. Matt Olson's, he's swinging for the fence. He's going for the doubles. He's going for the home runs. Freddie Freeman's gonna choke up, and he's gonna punch a ball over shortstop or the other way to get a hit and pick up a single. Matt Olson just didn't get those hits. He was swinging for the extra base hits, and that's what the Braves wanted from him. That's what the Braves got from him. So again, that's why I say he gave the Braves exactly what they traded for. I think exactly what they wanted from Matt Olson. But if you go down the road of trying to compare him to Freddie Freeman, then that's where maybe you feel like there's more left to be desired. And I think Matt Olson would even say it wasn't necessarily his best season overall. Certainly, You don't like the lulls, the big slumps in there. But in the end, you look at the numbers, and I think, if you would have told me that at the beginning of the year, I probably would have been a little bummed with the average being down that much. But again, 78 extra base hits, over 100 runs batted in, over 30 home runs. Just give me those numbers and 800 OPS. I would have taken that all day long at the beginning of the year. Some things I didn't like about Matt Olson, and I kind of touched on these already. Would like to see the more singles. I'd like to see him choke up, when you need to put the ball in play and just get that single and take the ball the other way, as we saw him do in April, where, he wasn't getting the home runs, but he was spraying the ball all over the field. Fewer strikeouts. That's where he really took a big step back in 2022. In 2021, had much better plate discipline and put the ball in play a lot more. Just a 16.8% strikeout rate in 2021, fell back to a 24.3% strikeout rate in 2022. So I'd like to see that come down a little bit more going forward. And from the eye test, I thought the defense was underwhelming based on what I was expecting. I was expecting a Gold Glove level defender. I don't think the Braves got that. I know he's a finalist, and maybe some of the numbers point towards him earning that, deserving that. But just my eye test, what I saw, I was a little underwhelmed with the defense. Not that I thought he was bad. I didn't think he was bad defensively by any means, but it wasn't spectacular. I didn't necessarily see a lot of spectacular plays from Matt Olson. I will say this. I thought he was a lot better in the second half defensively than he was in the first half. In the first half, for whatever reason, learning where his second baseman's playing, and he had to deal with, several different second basemen throughout the year, playing in the different alignments and shifts that the Braves had him playing in. Perhaps that had something to do with it, but particularly in the first half, I didn't think he was great defensively. In the second half, I thought he was much better. And there's one thing in particular I saw from him that I would love to see him work on, is when he's holding a runner on and he comes off the bag, he's on the infield grass, and anything hit to his left or right, he can't react to in time to get to it. And there's just so many balls that were hit towards him, and he was playing so far in after holding on the runner that he just couldn't get to those baseballs, and too many balls were able to get through very easily on that right side. So would love to see that adjustment be made. But, for the most part, did a great job scooping over there at first base, and he made some good plays. He has that long frame, so he is able to get to some of those balls, not necessarily the speed side to side that you would want. But again, I'm not saying he was bad defensively. Just from an expectation level of a guy who's won a Gold Glove, I was expecting a little bit more defensively. So again, not really a lot that I didn't like. Again, I think I got what I expected from Matt Olson this year, but I think there's certainly room for improvement. But overall, I thought he was great. Again, he gave you the power, he gave you the run production, he gave you good, solid defense. Even if it wasn't to the Gold Glove level that I was expecting. But overall, I thought it was a great year for Matt Olson, his first year with the Braves. And you look at going forward now, again, this guy had big shoes to fill. I don't think you can understate that enough. The shoes he was trying to fill at first base and trying to grow into that role, a new league that he's having to adjust to, a new fan base and a clubhouse that he's trying to win over. I got to think that played into his season a little bit, and maybe some of the struggles that he was having. But now that he has that behind him, I'm expecting big things from Matt Olson in 2023 and going forward. And as I've said, I think he'll be the biggest beneficiary of the shift going away. You're going to get a lot more of those singles now. There's a lot of balls he crushed to the right side that were caught because of the shift. I think you're going to see a lot more hits from him. Would love to see that average be up more towards, 260, 260 and a 340, 350 on base percentage with all the walks that he takes, a slugging more around 500. The slug numbers were fine. I mean, if he wants to push for 80 extra base hits again, I'd be more than happy with that. But I would love to see that average on base go up just a little bit, 260, 350 in that range. And certainly would be, even more happy with that season from Matt Olson. And that's pretty much what I'm expecting from him going forward. But overall, thought it was a good first year for Matt Olson in Atlanta. But if you're watching live, let me know in the comments. I'm going to get to that next and talk a little bit about week coming up. So currently, the postseason is on hold. Got a big break this week as we gear up for the postseason. Let me know in the comments who you think's going to win between the Astros and the Phillies. Who do you want to win? Who are some players, coaches that you're rooting for this postseason? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm going for the Astros. I know a lot of people may not like that. I'm kind of over the cheating thing at this point, and I just really don't like the Phillies. But more so than that, I want to see Dusty Baker get that ring. I love Dusty Baker. Certainly am excited for him and want to see him finally get that ring that he deserves. But let me know in the comments who you're rooting for. Quickly, I just want to check some of the comments online, those watching with me, and I appreciate everybody who's joining live. If you want to join live throughout the year, I'm going to do this for most podcasts throughout the off season. So be on the lookout for that when I go live. Got a lot of people in here still asking about who's going to be the Braves' new left field DH. We'll talk about that more in another episode or so. We'll preview who the Braves could be targeting for that left field job. But this comment comes from Chris Shaffey, a good listener of the podcast. Always had some great questions on our mailbag episode. He said Olson did a solid job. Next year he's going to have an MVP year. He really shined when it counted during the series and when we swept the Mets. MVP year, I'm all for that. Like I said, I'm certainly expecting big things from Matt Olson next year. Want to take a couple of more here. A lot of people talking about Jock Peterson as well. It seems to be one of the bigger names this offseason. This one from Joe Me says Olson will benefit from the shift ban more than any other Brave. He will get 25 plus hits extra next year that were outs this season. I agree. I don't know exactly the number of hits. Be interesting to go back and see some of those balls that were hit hard to the right side. They got caught by the shift, but I definitely would not be surprised to see his average jump at least 10 more points just based on the shift going away. Whether you like it or not, I think it is going to be a big benefit to Matt Olson. And I do agree with Joe. I think Matt Olson will be the biggest beneficiary of that for the Atlanta Braves. A couple more here. Still got a lot of Jock Peterson conversation going on. Benintendi. I certainly like the Benintendi idea. I need to look into that a little bit more. Let's see this comment from Great C145. I more compare him to the prospects we gave to Oakland for him rather than Freddie Freeman, which I think is a good way to do this. They did nothing this year. We got a really solid first baseman for the swap. Yeah, look, if you're trying to judge that deal and grade that deal right now, I think the Braves are definitely the clear winner. You got a great season from Matt Olson, an 800 OPS season, and the A's really haven't gotten much out of anything out of the prospects they gave up so far. I do think, Langoliers will be a good catcher. Pache, just hasn't really got it going with the bat. And Cusick and Estes, I think both took a step back with their prospect status. James Sanders says Matt Olson looks a bit clumsy sometimes. I would agree with that. Obviously, anybody, that tall, maybe a little bit lanky, I think they can look a little bit clumsy at times. Maybe that's why he doesn't look as great defensively. But again, the numbers tend to be there. Another one from Joe Me said, I too expected Matt to be better on D. I think him relaxing is going to improve his D next season. Like I said, I think even during the 2022 season, he improved a lot and got even better as the season went on. This one from Miguel Arica said, sorry, but Freeman is on another level. Olson is so far for replacing Freeman. He's not that guy. He fits better the number 6 spot. I don't agree with that, Miguel. I think they're two different players. I do think Freddie Freeman is better, and I said that last offseason. I think Freddie Freeman will be the better player for maybe the next 2 years. Where it becomes the difference is, again, Matt Olson, he'll play next year at still age 29. He's still in his 20s. He's going to be better, you would expect, throughout the duration of this contract, where you expect Freddie Freeman to be on a decline. James says Freeman, Hall of Fame player. Olson was the best that could be had. I agree with that. Look, and I've said that I think Freddie Freeman could ultimately end up being a Hall of Fame player. I think he's certainly on that path. Another great year in 2022. He puts up 3-4 more seasons like this. I think he's definitely in consideration for the Hall of Fame. But like I said, it had to be either Freeman or Olson. Alex kind of felt like Freeman thing wasn't going to work out. He had to pivot before it was too late. Went with Olson, the best that was available outside of Freddie Freeman. And again, I think Olson delivered on what you could expect from him. Can't compare him. This one from Great Z 145 again says, can't compare Matt Olson to a batting champ in his first year. Freddie is at his peak now. Yeah, again, like I said, I even said this last offseason. Again, I think Freddie Freeman will be a better player for these next couple of years. But when Freddie hits his mid 30s and Matt Olson's just coming into his 30s, that's where, you hope the Braves get the benefit of that deal. I got some World Series picks here. William Fulgham says Astros will win it. Matthew Anderson says Astros. They got Snit's kid on the staff. That's a great point. I forgot about that. Snicker's son with the Astros organization. Great C145 says, hate to say it, but I'm pulling for Bryce Harper. Oh, how could you say it? James Saunders, Astros are cheating again. Lance, Dusty deserves a win. I hate the Phillies way too much. And on top of that, they beat us. So no way I root for them. Joe Me, Matt hits fourth unless Ronnie hits third. He should always hit behind Riley. I'd love to see us to Harris, Swanson, Acuna, Riley, and Olson be our 1 through 5 next season. I like that. Look, I get why Acuna's in the leadoff spot, and he's done a great job there. And I don't think, Snicker's going to mess with that. But I do like the idea of hitting Acuna third. If Harris could handle the leadoff spot and he hits like he did in 2022, I think that's the perfect spot for him. And obviously, if Swanson's back, I think he can handle that 2-hole. Or you go Harris, Acuna, Olson, Riley, Swanson. Either way, I think those top 5 would be really, really great, however you line it up. But I kind of like the idea of putting Ronnie in that 2 or 3 hole and putting Harris at the top. James Saunders says, I hate the Mets. Phillies are okay. I hope they win. Mets fans are going to be so mad if the Phillies win, certainly for sure. And then I'll take this last comment here from Rajesh Kumar. Says, Olson underperformed this year compared to expectations. Last season, his WAR was 5.8. This season was 3.4. For sure. Look, I think by his standards, obviously, he was hoping for a better season. I think there's room for improvement. A 5-win season is, getting close to MVP level, and he certainly wasn't that this year. But again, for what the Braves needed and what they traded for, I think he gave the Braves, exactly that in terms of run production and power. He certainly delivered there. But again, like I started out saying at the top, I think there certainly is some room for improvement. I think the shift will help for that. I think another year just getting comfortable in Atlanta in a new league, I think helps a lot. And I'm expecting big things from Matt Olson in 2023. But that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thank you all for joining me here live. If you want to join me live, again, be on the lookout for my tweet. I'll do this between about 8 and 10 p.m. Central throughout the week during the off season if you want to join us. But thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go make your second listen, Locked On MLB podcast, where MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and a unique perspective, talking about the biggest stories from around the league. Go give our guys over at Locked On Astros and our guys at Locked On Phillies a boost as well as they get ready for the World Series. Again, thanks for listening. You can follow us on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. That's where you'll get that notification whenever I am going to go live during the off season. You can follow me at shortstopball. I'll retweet it there as well and send in any questions or comments that you have for our upcoming mailbag episode. Also, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.